Hello and welcome to the big Arsenal discussion. I'm your host Giles, and joining me today I've got regular Robbie from Arsenal Fan TV.
Yep.
And we've got three guests. We've got Dan from the Goonosphere website, as well as the Arsenal, You Are My Arsenal. We've got Kelvin from Black Scarf Movement. And we've also got another special guest today. He's all the way from Singapore. He's been on Arsenal Fan TV before. His name is Alexis. Good afternoon, Alexis.
Good name, good name.
Yeah. Cracking.
All right, let's talk about the striker situation. We've heard that Giroud is ahead of schedule in terms of his recovery. And there will be a conundrum, there will be a selection dilemma when he is fit, whenever that is, whether it's just before Christmas, as to who do we start? Do we start Welbeck, who's done quite well, or do we start Olivier Giroud? I'm going to start with you, Robbie.
I was hoping you weren't going to start with me. Oh, you know what?
Who's your man at the job?
It's a really tough one because, listen, let's not forget Giroud last season. He did well for us. He tailed off towards the end of the season, but I thought he did very well. His hold-up play is probably better than Welbeck's, particularly in away games. He's a very useful player to have, Giroud. But then, of course, Welbeck's got the pace, that pace in behind. And if you've got that pace in behind, you know, against teams that, you know, are very defensive, and try and, you know, say a team tries to play a high line, it's very, very difficult to cope with. So, you know, it's a real... it's very hard. It's very hard.
You've got some splinters there, haven't you?
Oh, I have. If I'm going to get off the fence slightly, I'll go Welbeck for now because I'll say that pace, that extra bit of pace that Welbeck's got to get in behind defences, I like. I really like that. And that's Giroud does lack a bit of pace, so I'd stick with Welbeck for now, but probably use Giroud more in away games where we need that hold-up play and also his defensive attributes as well. So,
okay, so it's Welbeck for you, Dan.
I thought Robbie brought up a good point. Giroud last season tailed off, I think, because he was flogged to death. He had no competition. He had no one else. He played so many games, and he remained more or less fit throughout the season. So the guy's a workhorse. He's got some metal about him. But I mean, they could play together, but they're not going to play together because we don't play 4-4-2.
I could put him. What I can see happening, sorry to butt in on you, is that maybe they might end up putting Welbeck sort of over on that left-hand side.
And if he does, then we're going to have the Welbeck of Man United, who was pants. He was awful at Man United because the stat was, I think he played 4 or 5 times through the centre for Man United, and he scored nearly every game. And look what he's doing for us. I mean, like you said, I think Giroud in away games, he can hold the ball up, and then we rampage on the counter. He holds the ball up until he's got ammunition and he's got followers in his ranks to help him. But also, you've got Welbeck, who could come on as a sub and frighten him with his pace. I think it's a good dilemma to have, and I think he can choose the striker which is best for each game, because each game isn't going to be the same. You're going to have Stoke one week, and it's going to be high balls. Well, it used to be anyway. Now that Mark Hughes is in charge, it's changed. But tactics and games will differ from game to game, and I think one for one, one for the other. It doesn't have to be 5-6 game run.
Alexis.
Well, just like Robbie said, you know, Giroud got us a handful of goals last season, and we've got to remember that we played him throughout the whole year, and his only competition was Sanogo, really. And I mean, competition's healthy in a squad, and we have that now when he returns, you know, Welbeck, Giroud. For me, I think we should play Welbeck just because he has got the pace and he's a fighter. Giroud does have some fight in him, you know, but for Welbeck, you know, he's always on the move, and he's always looking to give our midfielders an option, and he's always on the run. So that's a good thing about him. I think that's what we need in the squad right now.
Kelvin, at the moment, from what it seems to me, the team, I mean, you know, Welbeck is new to the team are new to him in terms of finding out where he runs and so on and so forth. With Giroud back in the team, everyone seems, I would imagine everybody will be a bit more comfortable with the system and the setup. Now that you've got Sanchez as well, you've got Walcott as well coming from the wide positions, you'll have Özil back. Wouldn't that help Giroud a bit more going forward? I mean, he knows the role. Welbeck doesn't know the role quite yet. he's kind of tailed off a bit in the last couple of games, which is going to happen. But do you think that Giroud will give us a bit more in terms of being that experienced number 9 that we're missing?
Yeah, I think so. With our tippy-tappy football and trying to score the perfect goal every time, it suits Giroud's game better than it does with Welbeck. Now, if Welbeck, as Robbie was saying, you can put the ball through to him, run on and use his pace, then I'll go with Welbeck. But that doesn't happen. You know, there's nobody puts that through ball for him to run onto. Now, it happened a couple of times last season with Giroud, and it was obvious that he couldn't do that because the amount of misses that he had. So in those situations, I would have Welbeck in some of those situations that Giroud were in last year. But there's a couple of situations this year that I would have loved to have Giroud in where Welbeck was. It is going to be a difficult decision once they're both out there. But you know, if you get paid £8.5 million a year, you get paid to make those sort of decisions.
Recently, Wenger did revert or opt for the 4-4-2. I know in the AGM he said he wasn't going to be averse to using it. Do you reckon that was, you know, look with sort of in light with the fact that Giroud will be coming back and he will be able to play Giroud and Welbeck, or Giroud and Walcott, or Giroud and Alexis?
Listen, I think the 4-4-2 could work. However, with our defensive options behind those two, do we have that holding midfield? And I think Wenger sort of alluded to that at the AGM. Do we have that defensive holding player behind them if we get outnumbered in midfield? And at the moment, I don't think we do. So it's a bit risky to play 4-4-2 against, particularly against, like, you know, if you're facing up against the real top teams or teams with a lot of very good attacking players. But I certainly think there are some games, like when we played the other day against Burnley, or when we played the other day against Hull City, where they're ultra defensive. Let's go 4-4-2. I think in those games we can go 4-4-2, and I'd love to see Giroud and Welbeck playing as a 2 up against some of those defences.
Alexis, do you think the acquisition of Welbeck will inspire Giroud to, you know, when he comes back, to reach those higher heights? I mean, because as you guys were saying, you know, towards the end of last season, he did tail off. He'd done a workload of a mule, you know, and he did need some sort of rest and you know, be able to switch it up a bit. Do you think that this acquisition of the newfound sort of strike force that we have could inspire him?
Hopefully it will. You know, hopefully he'll come back stronger, similarly to maybe Ramsey did. Walcott hopefully is also going to come back stronger. I think our strike force is going to be better once he returns. And I mean, the team hasn't really gelled yet. We thought it was coming after the 2-1 win versus Anderlecht, but with him coming back in the squad, I think he'll really be motivated to push us forward, because he is an Arsenal fan. You know, when he celebrates the goals, he's always kissing the badge. You know, he pours his heart into the game, and I really think he can help us improve in attack, because he is a good player. At the end of the day, he was just overplayed last season, in my opinion.
Danny, what happens to Sanogo?
Sanogo needed to go out on loan in the summer.
Talking about Kelvin's favourite player, eh?
It's a postman that fails to deliver.
He needed to go out on loan because, I mean, there's obviously something that Wenger sees. There has been the very rare spark. He can't finish for Toffee at the moment, but I mean, you can put finishing down to a lack of confidence for any player. Never mind Sanogo, who is completely unproven. He has got something. He's got the framework, but he is so not ready to be anywhere near our first team squad at the moment. The reason he had an effect in the whole the cup final is because he's like a bull in a china shop. He just comes in and just charges around. He unsettles things. It's not down to talent. He needs to go out on loan, maybe to a team like Charlton or a Millwall. Go there, ply your trade, learn from the bricks up, and then come back and see if you've got it. Just like every other player, young player had to do. You had to prove yourself at another club. See if you can do it.
Colin, let me put a question to you, the postman that fails to deliver.
Yeah, Wenger still thinks he's first class. Sorry. Been here a long time.
That was good, Mike.
What's going to happen to Campbell? I mean, he seems unsettled. Summer, he didn't get his move to Benfica on the back of a very encouraging World Cup. He's not getting a look in. You know, Sanogo's back. Gnabry's come back. He's not even in the 18-man squad against Anderlecht. Do you think we're going to sell him? Do you think he's going to push to be sent out at loan at least during the transfer window?
I think he's on his way out, and I think it's unfortunate because I like Campbell. I like Campbell, and I think he's got something to offer Arsenal. But I just think, you know, the position that he plays, we've got so much there. For some reason, it looks like Arsene Wenger doesn't fancy him, and I think he's on his way out. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, it's just it's like you know, we've had discussions of other players. What is it that Wenger sees in him that the rest of the world can't? You know, you got Joel Campbell who was one of the stars of the World Cup. You know, and they're making him sit behind a lad who's a part-time footballer in a French third division side. You know, who wouldn't want to move on?
Dan, finish with yourself. I mean, do you see Campbell pushing for a move away? I mean, what was the point of Wenger bringing him back if he's not going to use him?
He had the Wellington effect, didn't he? 3 seasons out on loan to different clubs and whatnot, and see if he can prove himself. And he did. He got progressively better if you look at his stats. Then he went to the World Cup, just like Kelvin referred to, and he was brilliant. He played central, he played out wide and cut in. He was good, and I think he can do a better job than Podolski. I love Podolski, but more because of his social antics rather than anything else. He is probably the best finisher we've got, but he's not a striker. We've seen him up top, and he can't play there at all. He's woeful. He runs less than a rocking horse. It's shocking. But Joel Campbell can do a better job than Podolski can, but he's not, just like Robbie referred to, he's not going to get a sniff, and I have no idea why. Don't know.
Interesting. Okay, all right, so that ends the discussion. Why don't you give us your comments? Do you think it's Welbeck or Giroud? Do you think it's Podolski or Campbell? Would you rather have Sanogo or anybody else? Leave your comments in the box below. Thanks for listening and watching, and that's been a big Arsenal discussion.
Listen, hold on. Listen, is this what? Is this? Hold on, wait a minute. Positive. We're 12 points behind the title. Is this the split in a nutshell?